Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Double Play podcast. I'm Ryan Donahue, joined by my marvelous co-host, Jack Smith. And today we're going to talk some baseball. It's exciting. And first off, Jack, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I like marvelous. We're gonna each episode switch off the intro and use a different adjective, and I like marvelous. I think that's an early favorite for best so far. I'm doing pretty well. We had a disappointing week in baseball, but overall a pretty good week. Another week here at USC. Weather's been fantastic in Los Angeles, so definitely been enjoying that. Being outside a lot. Classes have been good this week, so excited to talk some baseball for sure, and excited about kind of the way the week has gone so
doing
far.
Great
but
so far.
How are you doing
this week? TCU basketball came through with a big win versus Kansas the other day. That's exciting. Weather's warming up here in Fort Worth, and baseball is, I think they're 7-1 now. TCU baseball, and club baseball is actually starting for me. I'm getting a little playing time, and first time playing for me since last May, and it was ugly. I'll say that.
Well, you got the save though.
I did get the save. Haven't pitched since like 8th grade, but I got the save. We got a win. But boy, was I sore. It was rough everywhere. My arm felt like it was going to fall off. First time pitching in a long time, but I had a lot of fun. Great to play again.
Yeah, for you viewers, so Ryan and I used to play travel ball together on the same team, and I don't know if any of you guys have ever played travel ball, but normally tournaments would be Saturday and Sunday, and you go back to school on Monday. But if there was a day off, either for like a President's Day or a Labor Day, you'd have a 3-day tournament. And the joke around travel ball was Ryan is the Monday starter. When all the pitching's already run out, then you throw the second baseman on the mound. And I was happy to hear that he got the save, because I was a pitcher in high school. I was a PO by the time I was a sophomore. So, I wish I was there to see the save, but I can understand how you'd be sore, because it's been a long time for me as well. And when I went to play catch with you, what was it, like half a year ago now, during senior year, like my arm was killing me even before we were done playing catch.
I also want to throw in, it was a 5-pitch save. I came in with bases loaded in the 7th. Got the guy to 2-2, got him to fly out to left, and we threw out the guy tagging up. So I threw 5 pitches, got 2 outs for the save.
Okay, so they didn't really believe in you as the full closer. That's disappointing to me. See, because you didn't tell me that. I earned
my role.
You earned your role as a closer now?
Exactly.
That's good. Okay. No, because I didn't know that you came in with bases loaded. So it's like you were second on the pecking order. It knocks a little bit of the credibility off. Well, but I will. The
guy who was pitching. The guy who was pitching before me was in his 3rd inning of work, so he was rolling.
Okay.
And I came into.
Oh, so they didn't think they needed a closer, but you are the closer.
Exactly.
There we go. I can respect that, and I can respect a 5-pitch save, especially with bases loaded. That's a reliever. I understand that's a tough situation to be in. What pitches did you throw? All fastballs?
I threw 1 curveball. I got him to 1-2. I threw a dirtiest pitch you've ever seen in the dirt, and he took it. The
curveball?
Yep.
I was going to say, I thought it would break like a solid 4 inches, or, just a little marginal amount, but.
No, it was dirty curveball in the dirt. Almost got him to go for strike 3, but got him to fly into a double play the next pitch.
I mean, you can't hate. When's your next game?
We play 2 weekends, or 3 weekends actually, because we got spring break this week, so we don't play either of the bookend weekends. But we'll play the weekend after.
I mean, it gives you time for your body to rest, especially if you got like the old man knees, the old man back, all that. So,
yep, I need it.
Do you want to get into some of our quick hitters? Explain to the viewers exactly kind of what we're thinking for this segment.
Let's do it.
All right. So we've, like we said in the last episode, we've been thinking of a lot of kind of random, clever segments that we can throw throughout the episode and tying them into baseball with some punny names. But quick hitters is the idea we thought to start some episodes where it's just going to be quick little news and notes, things we've seen throughout the week in baseball. So quick hitters is what we want to call them. There's going to be a lot of these segments. We're going to get into one more at the end of the episode as well, swing and a miss, which we'll explain to you later. But since we've got a lot of these ideas, we're going to be putting them in different episodes, random orders, random times, kind of figuring it out. And it's kind of, we want to leave it up to you guys to tell us which ones are your favorites, which ones we should keep. And eventually through, the months and the weeks, we will figure out exactly what we want to have in every episode as the regular routine of segments. But Ryan, you want to start us off with our first quick hitter of the day?
Yeah, our first quick hitter goes to Mike Trout. I'm sure some of you saw his post, but if you didn't, posted this on Twitter and Instagram about his thoughts on the lockout, which is rare for Mike Trout to speak up about something. We'll get into that a little bit, but this is what he said. I want to play. I love our game, but I know we need to get the CBA right. Instead of bargaining in good faith, MLB locked us out. Instead of negotiating a fair deal, Rob canceled games. Players, stand together. For our game, for our fans, and for every player who comes after us. We owe it to the next generation. Jack, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, that's big words from the king of baseball. Like I saw Fernando Tatis reposted as well on Instagram with a crown. And it's like, I think everyone knows that Mike Trout is the king of baseball, but he hasn't really been the face. And we put out a tweet on Twitter, CHT dash or dot
underscore
CHT underscore MLB on Twitter. Go follow. It's saying, and I was like, if you have Mike Trout speaking out about what you have done as a league, you have really messed something up, because this is a guy that does not speak up. He is the best player in baseball, but he doesn't really speak up unless prompted. And he especially does not say things in a negative light. Like if you're hearing from him, he's talking about something he likes and not something he doesn't like. And for him to kind of put this out on multiple channels, and even call, Commissioner Manfred just Rob, like, you have messed up as a league. So I'm excited to see, or happy to see that, Mike Trout's putting stuff out there, because, that puts pressure on the MLB. And anytime that we hear from him, I think it's great, because, hearing from the best player in the sport, it brings some attention to the sport. And I think that's kind of what baseball needs. And if that's what Mike Trout can be, especially in the lockout, I think that's pretty valuable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you hit it on the nose there. But one thing, not only did he speak out about his thoughts on the lockout, he attacked Rob Manfred and the owners. Like, he did not hold back, which I was surprised to see for sure. But it's really just not a good look for anyone right now.
This is like the most Mike Trout graphic ever too. It's just, for those of you watching on YouTube, obviously you can see it. Spotify, Apple Podcast listeners, I'm sorry, you can go find it on his Instagram or Twitter, but it's literally just a black screen with a little bit of pizzazz, a little bit of like noise and rustling, and then just white text. And I was like, that's Mike Trout for you.
Yep.
And one thing we actually didn't include on the quick hitters, but like, I feel like it kind of matches with this as well. Did you see the protest outside of the MLB offices with the guys cheering "man fraud" with the signs?
I did see that. That was
and then they got arrested too.
Did they? I did not see that.
They did. I think they were getting arrested. I saw them in handcuffs on the sidewalk. So, free whoever it was, because they're not really all that wrong, but we'll get into that later. I mean, the bulk of this episode is going to be talking about the lockout. Obviously, it's the story of baseball. As much as that sucks, we kind of have to talk about it. For the second one of these things that we saw this week, I'll put the video up on YouTube as well, but Juan Soto is not letting the lockout stop him. He's on this, little dirt field playing a sim game, and he absolutely cranks one out of the outfield. The sound off of his bat, which I'll put the link in the description as well to the Twitter post. It's insane. He absolutely blasts the ball, and it seems like he's gonna take and keep going from where he was last season, where he was maybe the best player in baseball.
Yeah. Our listeners will find this out soon enough, but I am not a fan of Juan Soto, unfortunately, just because when he was really breaking out and really making a name for himself was on their World Series run, of course, which was against the Dodgers. I was introduced to that Soto shuffle that I despise so much. And so I will have to say I am starting to give him credit, because he has earned his credit so far. He has been a great player the last few years, but I'm just not a fan of his.
I feel like it's kind of the same scenario for me. Like I will root for him, and I really like watching him if he's not playing the Giants, and if I don't have to see the Soto shuffle. Like you laugh about it when it's not happening to your team, but then your pitcher throws a ball and he does it, and you want to literally you want him off the face of the earth.
Yeah, exactly. He does this little Soto shuffle and then hits a bomb the next pitch. Just You can't like that if it's against your team.
No, I remember Giants were playing the Nationals last year. DeSclafani was pitching, and they ended up going CG in that game. But like in the 7th or 8th inning, I think it was, when he was dealing, he throws a ball to one side, and I see that, and I'm just like, are you serious right now? Like, I just, and then that's the one he actually ended up getting robbed by Mike Tauchman the second, like a week after he robbed, it was Pujols, right?
Yeah, the Pujols to win the game.
Yep. And it was awesome. So I was happy at that point because kind of like karma gets back at him. But that's besides the point. He's still going to rake. You can expect him to have a good season whenever it rolls around. I just thought that was really funny.
Yeah, and our next quick hitter is Joey Gallo he's getting a little active on other social media platforms, creating a LinkedIn profile, which he's got his work experience, 9 years for the Rangers, 9 months for the Yankees, outfielder, all his education experience as well, and his skills, which I thought were funny.
Yeah,
I had just found out that he wrote these skills himself, actually. Skill number 1 was striking out. Number 2, hitting into the shift. We'll get into that a little bit later too. And number 3, getting dressed weird.
I don't remember. I don't understand that one.
No, he doesn't. He's not like a Russell Westbrook type of guy where
maybe he means like, does he wear like high socks and like stirrups? I must be missing the story. I'll have to go research that one after the episode. Yeah, no, but that's the best part though. The skills.
Yeah. I thought that was funny. Him creating LinkedIn profile. Maybe he's looking for other work in the time of a lockout.
It reminds me of early in the lockout when MLB.com took all the player information off of their like stats pages. And so everyone put the little like blank face guy as their profile pictures.
A lot of players still have that, by the way.
I know. I remember, I think Alex Wood has that one still. So it's really funny, but well, I wonder if he's gotten any job offers. Like, has anyone like connected with him on LinkedIn to offer him a job in this, time of no baseball?
I'm sure he's got plenty of job offers if he would like to step away from baseball.
Joey, if you want to be a guest or be an honorary co-host of the podcast till baseball comes back, connect with us on LinkedIn.
Yeah. We'll give you a job.
Something similar to go back to Twitter. A lot of the stuff is going to be social media posts because we don't really have any actual baseball going on right now. But after the CBA deal was not reached and the lockout became a further truth, Logan Webb said need to get some sim games going here in Arizona, which as a fan, I'd love to see that happen as a Giants fan too. So a couple of funny retweets were Kevin Pillar. He said, call me and I'll come try to whack that Sanka, meaning sinker, which is funny. They never played on the Giants together. I don't know, maybe they did, but I don't think Logan Webb was up at that point. So they probably played together in spring training, but that was pretty funny. Marcus Stroman, let me know. We'll be back Monday. And Alex Wood saying that Logan Webb just wants to take at bats, which even though there's going to be a universal DH, Logan Webb, the last pitcher to ever hit a home run in Major League Baseball, if the universal DH stays. So I thought that was pretty funny. And I'd love to see them actually get some sim games going because it's a start for baseball at this point.
Yeah, exactly. I hope they get those going and maybe stream them, televise them, something. I need my baseball, but I'm enjoying watching college baseball. Shout out to them. There's a lot of entertaining stuff going on in college baseball. So if you're looking for baseball, college baseball is the way to go.
Tommy Tanks. It's been absolutely destroying the baseball.
He's insane.
Yeah, USC. I've been to, I think, 4 USC baseball games now. They've playing a lot of out of conference games. Obviously, they're going pretty well so far. But we'll see what happens come conference play time, because that's, you're facing UCLA and Oregon State and Oregon and Stanford and Cal, and it's like that's when things become real. But if they get those sim games going, definitely tune in some of those. The Marcus Stroman one pains me though, because I wanted him in the Giants, and he literally said that like he was so close to signing with the Giants, and like it's good to hear like for the validation that like this Giants organization is legit, but he didn't need to tell me he was so close to coming.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Marcus Stroman, and he's another guy who's been very, very active on social media, calling out Rob Manfred a lot.
Yeah, you love to see it.
Yeah. And our final quick hitter, this is coming from Clint Frazier on Twitter. He says, I think it might be time to apply for that McDonald's job everyone said I'd be working. Which this one's a funny one because obviously if you've followed Clint Frazier, he's kind of, I'd say, up and coming a little bit. He had a slow start to his career, and obviously under the bright lights in the Bronx for the Yankees fans, that'll get punished from the Yankee fans. And So everyone was making jokes like, oh, we should go work at McDonald's, and found a little bit of success. So it's funny to see him coming back to like kind of as a joke, but who knows, maybe he needs that job.
Yeah, I mean, like most of the stories that you hear is like, it's the middle school teacher saying you can't be a professional baseball player. You'll probably end up just flipping burgers at McDonald's. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happened to him as a child as well. But like when he was coming up, like he was a coveted prospect. Like I know he was involved in a lot of big trade packages, and Yankees fans were like, no, we can't get rid of Frazier. And then he played well, and then he started to not play well, and now they want him to work at McDonald's. So I think just the irony of that story, and the timing of the tweet, plus writing it in all lowercase, the irony there is just, it's fantastic. Do you want to get into the lockout? I know you don't, but I think
we got to talk about it. So let's jump right in.
Yeah, I mean, we'll start with just kind of reviewing the news and the timeline of everything that's happened. So first of all, a very, very long time passed without any negotiation, which I know that's kind of a cause that a lot of people are upset with right now, is that the negotiation took so long to actually get started, but we ended up getting it. Negotiations started. It really looked like we were going to have a deal Sunday night. I know we were recording episode 1, the introduction, on Monday, and we were like, if they make a deal on Sunday, our episode on Monday will probably have a different tone to it. So they didn't end up making a deal Sunday night. It was leaked by sources that, there was really close to a deal. We'll get into a tweet later that people said it was within striking distance. And whether that was put out there by the owners or not is going to be an interesting conversation. That players are pretty adamant, like we weren't all that close. The owners are just trying to turn this against us. But they eventually extended the deadline. They said a deal needed to be done by Monday. They extended it through, for a couple of days. No deal was met at that point. And then they kept negotiating. They kept talking, and the league said, we're going to make this best and final offer, which Rob Manfred now denies. But the last offer that was made was really considered a slap in the face by the Players Association. So with all that we heard that they were close, within striking distance, to hear that there was that last offer on the table, and then to read what the actual numbers were, they did not actually seem like they were very close. So in effect, the first 2 series of the season were canceled. And then Rob Manfred had this press conference where he was smiling and laughing. And that's kind of where we're up to at this point. But whether we thought we might be able to get a deal earlier in the offseason, I thought we really weren't going to get a deal. But as of now, what we know is the negotiations are still ongoing, and we are not going to have the first 2 series of the season, and opening day will be postponed.
Yeah, and just get into my thoughts a little bit. Overall, when the lockout first started, and both the Players Association and the owners had released their statements, the owners being the Players Association statement being like only a few sentences, and owner or Rob Manfred lists this long statement. After reading both of those, I was honestly on the side of the owners, because Rob Manfred had listed all the demands, which some of them I still don't get. I'll get into that in a second. But now I really do understand that the players are the product. They need their money. And for all the people saying, oh, they don't need money, they make whatever 30 million a year, they're doing just fine. That's such a small percentage of players. It's really those guys who have the voice. They're fighting for the minor leaguers who they actually have to find other work now. We joke about the Clint Frazier and the Joey Gallo, but there's minor leaguers who are actually needing to find work right now, and stadium workers who this is their livelihood, and they really need to find new jobs now, because baseball is how they make their money and how they live. And then, like you said, negotiations should have started earlier. I think it took 43 days for the owners to reach out. And I think it was Alex Wood who tweeted, man, we could really use an extra 43 days right now. Like, kind of ironically, obviously, because that's how long it took for the first contact to be made. And just final thought, it's really just sad to lose the prime years of the Shohei Ohtani, Tatis, Trout, DeGrom. Soto, Acuna, I could go on, but it's really just sad to see from diehard baseball fans. And you really just want to see those guys play. And one other thing, I will play a little devil's advocate here to myself, just from an optimist point of view. I think there could be a way where as long as the lockout doesn't drag on too far, there is a way where this could be good for baseball, because you always hear complaints, oh, the season's too long. Like, from non-baseball fans, like I'm not going to go and watch 162 games. So if the season's shortened a little bit to like 140, 150, maybe you get some more viewers, but I don't know. From a diehard baseball fan who watches all 162, obviously it hurts, but maybe you get some more viewers from people who aren't invested to all 162.
Yeah, I think the optical of like losing 6 games isn't the part I'm most upset about. Like, if you told me you were going to shave 6 games off the season before going in, I wouldn't really have a problem with that. I think I've said, we've talked about it before, that like, I think 162 is a little bit excessive. I'll enjoy watching all 162, but I think it's not necessary to have that many. And obviously 60 is way too short, but like somewhere, if you take 20 games off the season, you're playing 140 on the year. Like, I don't think that you're losing that much, but it's really just having the start of the season, opening day, just be whacked. That's the part that really hurts. And I think it really hurts, especially for the MLB, because right now, I mean, in America, not only has like soccer taken a really big jump, but the NFL and the NBA are far and above the MLB with I think the kind of the fan base that they've cultivated. And you're seeing a lot of kids not playing baseball from a young age now. And a lot of younger fans not really gravitate towards the sport of baseball because it's admittedly a little bit slower. There's kind of more strategy involved. There's a lot more thought that goes into it. You have to be kind of more patient with baseball, especially for the whole season, but also each game being longer. So for the MLB, like to have this going on as well, it just really sucks. Like I'll defend the sport of baseball to anyone, but it's getting hard to defend the MLB to people. Like I can say, okay, baseball's not boring. Do you realize how much, thought goes into pretty much everything that happens? Baseball's not easy. Do you know how hard it is to hit a baseball? Look at Giannis trying to swing a bat. But I cannot defend the MLB when you put it up next to the NFL or the NBA. And that's just a tough pill that we have to swallow. I think I agree with you. As long as we don't lose more games, this lockout could be a positive thing. As long as the owners don't get fully their way, I think meeting somewhere in the middle as of now, like it seems like a fair deal for both sides. But what the owners were offering, it's bad for the current generation of baseball. It would be bad for the future generation of baseball players. You mentioned minor leaguers having to find work. How about, housing? They have to pay for their own gas. Like the MLB and especially the ownership is it's just kind of not ruining baseball at this moment, but it's getting really hard to sit back and kind of watch it happen and watch it unfold and not be upset with the way that's going. And last point that you mentioned, that people are saying, oh, baseball players don't need the money. They have $30 million. How about the 30 owners who have enough money to own a professional sports team? I know they took a hit because of COVID, but still, do you realize how rich those guys are? That's the last point I'll make.
Yeah. And going back to what you said about how baseball's struggling with the youth, I was watching a Twitter live thing. I don't know what they call it yesterday. A bunch of baseball reporters, and Bob Nightingale was on it. And he brought up a point. There was a survey someone recently, I don't remember who it was through, but he brought up with Gen Z, which is our generation, baseball was ranked as the 6th most popular sport, which it was behind beach volleyball.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Please tell me it wasn't behind lacrosse.
I don't know. He didn't list the whole thing, but he just said baseball was 6th, one of them being behind beach volleyball. So it's just really not good for the growth of the game and the future of the game. And it's just not something you want to see. And this lockout obviously isn't helping anything.
Yeah, and I think the conversation around a lot of this has been centered around Rob Manfred, and going into the days before when everyone was kind of really starting to say, like, if this doesn't happen, F Rob Manfred, like all those things about him, calling him man fraud. Like I was ready to defend Rob Manfred because it's not his decision. This is the owners. He does not speak on behalf of the owners. He speaks on behalf of the MLB, which is kind of in between both sides, and it's supposed to be impartial. But to see him in his press conference, smiling and giggling and laughing at the questions while avoiding what reporters have to ask, saying, we're working hard. And another thing came out the other day. He was out at a driving range practicing his golf swing. Like, does he not realize how urgent this is? Like, you have already lost the first 6 games of your season. you don't really have a good outlook going forward. Spring training is not happening right now. And you're laughing at your press conference. That's what just really ticked me off. So I'm not really going to defend Rob Manfred anymore. Nor was I, going to at such a high level, but I think as of now, it's not just the owners you could be upset with. There's parts about Rob Manfred because he's got, history as well, saying that the World Series trophy is just a little piece of metal. He did not really punish the Astros at all for their cheating. So, it's, as a commissioner, I think there's a lot to be upset about with him as well.
Yeah, and just my thoughts on Rob Manfred, obviously they're a little personal because the whole Astros scandal thing, but just for the lockout as a whole, the impact that this is going to have, it's hard to tell, honestly, but there's obviously going to be an impact, and we've seen the impact already, but we don't know how long this thing is going to draw out. And right now it's just 6 games, but that was 3 days ago. 3 more days pass by, you have to cancel another series, and the deal needs to be done soon. And I guess there was an informal meeting today, but that's not going to create any progress for what we need. And and one other thing, the impact is because once we get a deal, there's going to be an insane amount of trades and free agent signings, and we're just going to go straight into spring training games and then straight into the season after that. And players might not have the full time that they would normally have to get ready for the season. And it might be a slow start season and maybe some injuries like we saw with the NBA bubble when they rushed into their next season. There was a lot of injuries that season. So it could have some impact on the game as well as delaying games in the future.
Yeah. And I think one of the interesting things to watch is going to be when that initial piece of trades and free agency starts, like there's still going to be, even if the deal is made, there's going to be animosity between players and front offices. And you're going to have to, like, the front offices are going to have to try and woo the players to sign with their teams, which I think is just going to be really interesting. And obviously, like, the owners speak as a group of 30 and the players speak as a group of 30, but there's got to be guys that owners that are, a little bit more vocal about what they want and owners that are a little bit more siding with the players. So I think that's going to be a real interesting talk when it comes to free agency. So, I mean, imagine if you're going into an offseason assuming, I want to sign with the Marlins, and you just tend to not like the Marlins owner during these discussions, you're not signing with the Marlins anymore. So I think it's going to be really interesting. And I don't know. I hope that the animosity doesn't last long, because in order to have a good organization, you have to have a solid relationship between the front office and the players. And I think that's something that's, even if there is a deal made, is going to be up in the air. So I think that's something that I really haven't heard talked about all that much, that I think is going to be a really interesting wrinkle once we do figure this all out.
Yeah, exactly. And talking about the details of the new CBA itself, we have some new rule changes coming, or some that are reportedly agreed upon, and it sounds like they're coming. One, the universal DH. I don't know where you stand on that, but I'm for it.
Me too. I mean, watching pitchers hit, as a pitcher, love to get it up into the batter's box. They should not be hitting in Major League Baseball games. And I think that's going to it's going to change the strategy of the game. Obviously, it's going to help some teams out substantially and maybe hurt some teams, including my Giants, because, Gabe Kapler has been one of the better, guys at deciding when to pull his pitchers, using pinch hitters. And I think that was something that really gave the Giants a step ahead last year. But also, now, actually, if Buster Posey was around, I would have been a far more, excited about this, because you get him a place to get off his feet. And I think his career lasts a couple of years longer. But I think it's going to really benefit some teams. I just think it makes far more sense. Why, for the longest time, did one league not have to bat their pitchers and, one league did?
Yeah, exactly. And if you had asked me 2 years ago, I would have been against the universal DH, because I really do love the strategy involved. But seeing it in that COVID season, It's really just better for the game. And you talk about appealing to young audience. They're not being drawn to the game by pitchers bunting and some strategy of, oh, should I pull them in the 5th or the 6th? They're drawn by seeing big guys hit big home runs, and that's what you'll get with the universal DH.
I mean, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I think that's going to make, guys like Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos, like, that's going to really bump up the market for those guys. And it opens a half of the league that they can go to, because sure, you can play for Cincinnati and stick Castellanos and right and pray to God that it doesn't, kill you. But if you can put him at DH, that makes him far more valuable to your team.
Yeah, exactly.
The other one was proposed, and I hope as of now the reports are that it's not going to be coming, and it's kind of been an agreement that it's not going to happen. But without a deal, I'm not really going to believe anything quite yet. But it's the expanded playoffs. Owners previously had wanted 14 teams in the playoff, which is 2 extra teams up from 12, which is what it's been. And I think for obvious reasons, they want 14 more playoffs.
It's been 10 teams.
Was it not 12 this past year?
No, they made it to 12 in the COVID season.
The COVID season. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's 4 extra playoff teams as well. 4 extra playoff teams, 2 in each league. And you understand why the owners want it. That's more games, more money. It makes sense. It checks out. But the competition, I just do not. I don't think that really represents what the MLB should be, allowing basically half the league into the playoffs. I know you've got some opinions on it, and I'll let you get to that.
Yeah, and one thing I did want to correct was I think of the COVID season, there was actually 16 teams, because I remember the Dodgers were a 1 seed playing the Brewers, who were an 8 seed. I think it was the top 2 teams from each division, and then 2 at-large teams. So I think it was 16 teams in total. But yeah, and then they went back to the 10 last year with the 3 division winners and 2 wild cards, 5 in each league. So that would be 10. And I would be okay if they went to 12, but like you said, 14 is too much. You don't play 162 games to let half the league into the playoffs. And the 12 I can get behind if expanded playoffs are coming. I mean, it makes sense from a business standpoint. Being business guy, I can understand it. 2 more teams is more. That's more opportunity for playoff baseball revenue. And that's something hard to give up, but 14 teams is just too much. And that's where I stand on the issue.
Yeah, I think if you were to go to more, I think I'd be okay with 12. But I think if you're going to put 12 teams in the playoffs, you probably have to experiment with not 162 games, just because that's a lot of, if you're putting almost half the league into the playoffs, and then turning them around in a couple months to go to spring training, like that's just going to be a lot of wear and tear on a lot of arms and a lot of legs. And, I think we'll see a lot more injuries if that happens. And I just think that you're right. If you're going to play 162 games, you should have it figured out by then who's a playoff team. So 14, way too much. 12, I'm still on the fence about. I like where it's at with 10, but I also understand that you leave a lot of good teams out of the playoffs with 10. So, but I think it'll vary year by year. So I think it'll be an interesting debate. Hopefully, as of now, the reports are true that it's not going to be 14. But keep in mind, this stuff also wouldn't start till I think it was 2024. So we'll have some years to figure this out, but I do hope it doesn't go to the expanded playoffs.
And one thing I did like is if they do go to the 12 teams, they'll most likely go with the top 2 teams get a bye, like how the NFL was before they added the new team, whatever it was last year or the year before. But I saw something so there would be 3 wildcard teams, obviously, with 6 teams per league. One thing I liked was, so you get the 3 division winners. Mm-hmm. That still matters if you win your division. Then the 2nd and 3rd wildcard team would play a 1-game playoff. And the winner of that would play a 3-game series versus the top wildcard. And then the winner of that would go on to play the 5-game series. Would that be against
the...
That would be against the 1 seed, and then the two versus 3 would still play each other like they had before. But granted, that's a lot of games to play in the playoffs. But
that's a lot of games before bringing in the division winners.
Exactly, and I think it'd be a lot of fun, because I personally don't like the 1-game wild card, but I think it still gives that aspect to kind of fight, because then you're thrown in that aspect where it's like, okay, well, you wouldn't have been in the playoffs before, but now we're giving you a chance, so we give you this 1 game, and then the top wild card, like as we saw with the Dodgers, they were way better than the Cardinals last year. It gives them a little more of an advantage. You play a team that's a little more beat up, and then you get a 3-game series versus just 1 game.
Yeah, because I mean, if the Cardinals, I was rooting for it, but if the Cardinals had beaten the Dodgers last year, I think you would have seen a lot of people calling for a change to the format, just because anything can happen in one baseball game. If you've played baseball, anything can happen in 1 game. You have 9 innings and anything can happen, especially considering like the records you come out with after 162 games. Like that's a lot of baseball. Anything can happen in one game. So I think it's interesting. What did you think of the proposals or the ideas about teams getting to pick who they played on like a TV show, like the NBA draft thing that they've done?
I thought it would be very interesting because there would be a lot of things that would go into the decision. I think it would be great for the fans. A lot of the fans would love it.
It would be great for baseball, but
the teams, I think if they were to do that, which it doesn't sound like they are, there's been no talks, so there's just rumors. But had they gone to it, I think it'd be very interesting because maybe do you go with the worst team or the team you have, or you go with the division you're familiar? If there's a team in the division, you're familiar with them, or do you go with like a rivalry game, maybe if from like a business standpoint, like, oh, well, we can get that huge crowd, a lot of publicity on that. So there's just a lot of factors that would go into that. And I don't know.
I think the interesting part to me was who decides. Is it the players? Is it the manager? Is it the GM? Exactly. Is it the analytics team? Like who decides? Because I don't know. I have a hard time believing that the GM and the owner wouldn't be picking, but I also have a hard time believing the players would be okay not picking. But I also think that's kind of the way that baseball would work is you say, you know what, we'll tell you who you're going up on the field against. You prepare on the field. And I just think that'd be super interesting. Like who do you think would pick? And like, say you're in the league, who would you let decide?
Yeah. I mean, you really don't know because obviously the players and the managers, they're the ones seeing every game. They're there. They're actually playing the game and making the decisions. But obviously at the end of the day, it's a business and the business aspect comes into it. And the owners and the GM, they want to be, they're obviously important people in the front office and they want to say, they know what's going on too, as well, granted. But you're right. It would never happen for that reason. It's just, there's too many moving parts and too many potential things that could go wrong. But I think it would be very exciting as a fan to watch.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't really want to see it. I think it would be really interesting if they tested it in maybe a minor league playoffs or, maybe we see that. I think college baseball might be the perfect spot for that. I don't know exactly how they would do it at this point. But I think that'd be really interesting. One thing that I don't think would be really interesting, which is kind of the last rule change. The MLB apparently wants to ban the shift. And I think there's, without any context, I don't really know what they mean by ban. But I know we talked about this before the show, so I'll let you go first on this. What are your thoughts on banning the shift? And then I'll kind of share my thoughts as well.
So I was actually going through a few days ago, I was going through my old tweets with one of my friends because we're a little active on Twitter about the whole lockout. And I was going through my old tweets and there was a tweet, had you asked me, I think it was like March, I think 2nd of last year. So almost exactly a year ago, there was a tweet by someone that said, should they ban the shift? And I said, I don't like the shift, but it's part of the game. Hitters should adapt. And over this last year, my thoughts of it have honestly changed. And one of the big things, I don't know if you saw probably about a month ago now, the video of the Yu Darvish slider, where it was absolutely dirty it was like a back foot slider. Lefties can't just go the other way with that pitch. Like that's what I was saying. I was like, they just learn to be complete hitters and just learn to go the other way. It's not that simple. These MLB pitchers, they're at the highest level. They're not just serving it up for you and you just stick your butt out and hit it the other way. It's not that simple. And so my stance on the shift is I think you should require all the players to be on, all the infielders to be on the infield dirt, because at the end of the day, they're infielders and you put the outfielders in the outfield. And they can put as many people on one side as they want. But I think a rope that takes a one hop to the third baseman and shallow right, that should be a base hit. That shouldn't be a ground out. And honestly, we're talking about growing our game and being more exciting. What's more exciting? Line drive triple into the corner or that same hit that's a ground out to the third baseman in right field?
So in your scenario, bringing in a fifth outfielder with a bottom of the ninth and the winning run on third base, like you wouldn't be okay with that either?
I mean,
It's kind of the same deal. It's just we don't see
it
it as
is.
often.
It is exactly. It's similar, but I think that would be something that I have to give thought. But I think the infielder should not be in the outfield, and I don't know. It's just I don't know where I would stand on the outfielder in the infield because that's a little different. Because then that opens up the offense. You hit one into the gap, then and you're running forever. But obviously, if it's in the bottom of the ninth, that won't matter anyway. If you hit it into the gap, it's a game over. But I don't know. Where I stand is the infielder should be on the infield and the outfielder should be in the outfield.
I think I understand. Like, so in your scenario, you don't want to ban the shift fully.
No, you just limit the shift.
And I think I'm okay with that too. I'd be open to scenarios like that. But if the MLB is really serious about banning the shift, I just think that is an absolutely huge mistake. You're just taking the strategy out of the game. And it just does not make sense to me. And you look at other sports and leagues are completely fine with this kind of strategic decisions that go on. In football, you know how you make your offense better? You put wide receivers in motion. It's not like the NFL has banned teams putting their receivers in motion, which is a relatively new idea as well. And it just allows offenses to open up. Sure, there's limitations. You can't have all of your 5 receivers in motion at the same time, but it's not banned. In the NBA, if you're losing by 1 with 30 seconds left in the game, you're not going to let the other team dribble it out. So you foul them and you put them at the free throw line and hope they miss. It's not banned. Sure, there are limitations. If you foul them, they're going to get 2 shots. Like you just immediately get the ball back. And if you have too many fouls, you foul out of a game, but they're not banned. And so I think I'd be okay with a little bit of a limitation. I think maybe not as drastic as making the infielders all stay on the dirt because at that point, it's strategy. And I think I like it because if you know a guy hits the ball there every single time, it's strategy. You put your guys there. I mean, think about, Ryan, when we invent sports over the summer and we kind of just play a bunch of random games that I'm sure that we'll have stories to talk about on the podcast. But if you are winning in tramp ball and you know you're going to win and you just chuck it right into the trampoline and you don't give the other team a chance to score points, like it's just strategy. And I think you're taking a risk as well by putting your guys on one side. Brandon Belt, my favorite player, they shift him all the time. He just bunts it down the third base line. If you get it fair, sure, you're taking a risk as a hitter as well, because you could bunt it right back to the pitcher and be out. But there are ways to work around all these things. I know Yu Darvish can throw that perfect backdoor slider, or the perfect back foot slider, but pitchers make mistakes too. So I think as long as there's risk involved on both sides, which evens out, I think it's just strategy and I think it's good for the game. I'd be open to some limitations, but if the MLB really wants to ban it the whole way, I think that would be a catastrophic mistake.
Kind of going off what you said about motioning in football. And as for basketball, that is a problem in basketball. Actually, right now it's the fouling at the end of the games. I think there was the last 30 seconds of a Laker game recently took 30 minutes or something. It was something ridiculous. So they're calling for change there. But as for motioning in football, I think that's a little different because motioning is for the offense. And we all know what brings in money, what brings in viewers, what brings in the audience is offense. Defense is great and all. And it's important for the diehard fans. But what brings in money, what brings in people is offense. And so the motion is to help the offense. The shift in baseball, that's restricting the offense. And like I said earlier, what people want to see is hits. A lot of people don't want to see a defensive game. So I think limiting the shift would help more offense, and sure, would it hurt the pitchers and defense, and maybe some diehard fans would like it. But from an aspect of growing the game, I think it would help create more offense and create more viewership.
And I'm all for that normally. But in this case, if you are sacrificing the strategy of the game to boost viewership, I just think that is where I draw the line. I'm all for growing the game with bat flips and pitchers yelling off the mound and celebrations and allowing all that stuff and allowing players to wear whatever cleats they want and, colorful socks and anything like that and other reasons as well. I'm fine with that. But if you are deliberately sacrificing a large aspect of the game, which is the strategy and the pitching and the defense, just to allow more base hits. That's where I draw the line. Like, I think that was going a little bit too far and appealing a little bit too much as a business when you're sacrificing, the integrity of the strategy of your own sport. I'm fine, those unwritten rules that a lot of more traditional baseball fans would believe in, where you can't celebrate or showboat or bat flip. If you're allowing that kind of stuff, and like, I'm all for that, because you're not really sacrificing the integrity of the sport that's actually being played on the baseball field. I think that's fine. But if you're going out there and you're saying we aren't going to allow this because it takes away from the offense, I don't know. I just think that's a little wrong.
And yeah, one final thing just to respond, and I'll give you a chance to say something before we move on. But I think yes, it is limiting the strategy in some sense, but also to some extent, it's not strategy. It's just numbers. And I know playing the numbers is a strategy, but if they do it every time, it's not a strategy at that point. That's just where you're playing your defense. And I think it's a little different than just like other strategies that come into the game, like when to pull your pitcher. Like there's like other, like, oh, maybe they don't do well getting into the seventh inning or facing a lineup for the third time. That's strategy based off analytics, in my opinion. But analytics where you're just like, all right, put him over there, he's going to hit the ball over there, it happens every time. That's not strategy at that point to me. That's just what you do, because that's what they do every time.
But I mean, it is based off of strategy. Like, I know they say, okay, play him over there, it's where he hits it, but that comes from numbers and data that teams collect, and it's different for every batter. I get that. Maybe, they look at limiting the amount of times a team can shift per game, because I think there's still that maybe even brings in more strategy, saying, okay, if we use it here in the third inning, we're, using one of our 10 shifts on the, like, whatever number they choose. Like, I think there's a creative way out there to appease both sides, both you and I, without banning it completely, without saying, okay, first baseman only plays here, the second baseman only plays here. Like, I think that would be a big mistake for baseball.
Yeah, I can get behind the limiting number of shifts per game. That though, like you said, it'll add more strategy. Like, okay, we maybe not use it when there's no one out in the second inning. We want to use it in a big spot. But yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And it'll be definitely something to watch. Yeah.
Do you want to introduce the swing and a miss segment to round out the episode?
Yeah. So our final segment for the day is swing and a miss, which is kind of our bad take. Not necessarily from us. Maybe it will be from us as we start to have some more takes. But for now, it's kind of the videos, tweets, posts, things we see that maybe they're just a bad take. You know it when you see it. And so I'll go ahead and start off with my take. Mine was the tweet from John Hyman. It wasn't necessarily maybe his take, but he said, contradictory to all negativity, upset surrounding the MLB/players talks, one person involved said he believes sides are now within striking distance and a deal could be done tomorrow night. Luxury tax still remains sticky issue, but 225 to 230 should work. And this was the day before the first deadline. So I think it was Saturday. The first deadline was Sunday. So he tweets this on Saturday. Players immediately call like, oh, we are, like, kind of like being facetious a little bit. Like they're like, we're not close. And so he said the source says they're within striking distance, and they proceed to negotiate for 14 plus hours the next day. And then they extend the deadline. They say they're close again. They negotiate all Monday, and then they end up not really being close in the final proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's maybe not a bad take, but maybe more of a bad source. And it could be a planted source as well, from the owners, because that's something Alex Wood came out and said is like, the owners are trying to make us players look bad by telling you guys we were close and then having us be the ones to turn down the final offer. But either way, I think it's a swing and a miss on all levels. Mine comes from Will Hofer on Twitter. It's a kind of video that went viral on Twitter and on Instagram yesterday, which we're recording this on Thursday. So this would have been Wednesday, March 2nd. Drew Jones, who's the son of Hall of Famer, I guess soon to be Hall of Famer, probably, right? Andrew Jones, a projected number 1 overall pick in the draft this season out of high school. Fans at the opposing team's fans were chanting overrated as he was up at the plate, and he turned a 92 mile an hour fastball up in the zone around for a home run out to literally dead center field. That's about as bad of a take it can get, and it's one that like turns around instantly. Normally it's a bad take and it materializes a week later or a month later, and you see it on freezing cold takes, but like for them to be chanting overrated as he is taking your pitcher deep, that is just all levels of bad take. Yeah. I think my favorite comment, which I can try and find it, but I can't, I don't see it as of right now. They said, "Oh, is rated just the number of the center field or the name for the center field fence?" And that was my favorite. That was my favorite comment of the entire thing. I was like, that's an A+ comment right there. That's the content we're looking for on Twitter. But yeah, I mean, you can't be cheering overrated at the number 1 prospect. It's just going to make you look bad. It's like when teams in the NFL go to like stomp or dance or practice on the other team's 50-yard line and the logo in the middle before a game. Like that, you're asking to be proven wrong. You're asking to be turned into a walking bad take. Yeah. I mean, when he strikes out, you chant overrated, not as he's up to bat with a chance to take your pitcher deep. Like, cause then like you're just setting yourself up poorly. And I think the same thing, you let your play talk. So if you're, chapping or chirping about what you're going to do, how about you just wait, you hit the home run and then you bat flip on the way to first base. Yeah, but so these are the kind of segments that we were talking about earlier, swing and a miss, the quick hitters earlier. We've got a lot of just kind of random ideas that we're going to be cycling through each episode, especially when we actually get to baseball. But we want to know like what you guys thought of them, whether you like the segments, and eventually when we start to introduce them all, let us know, a couple of your favorites, because that'll help us figure out what kind of routine we should start to hit for each episode. But anything else you want to talk about baseball wise, non-baseball wise, before we wrap this one up? Yeah, and if we don't, we'll let you guys know whether Joey Gallo accepts our LinkedIn connection. Maybe we'll be analyzing some sim games out in Arizona with Logan Webb and Kevin Pillar and Marcus Stroman, or we can find out which McDonald's Clint Frazier's gonna be working at and go get like a Happy Meal or something. But yeah, anyways, we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We're hyped to be bringing you guys baseball. We're going to keep it going weekly. Not sure what day this one will be out, but probably try and stick to early week, either Monday or Tuesday, bringing you guys each episode. And we're super excited, really enjoying it so far. And we hope you guys are as well. You can find us on Twitter or Instagram. If you're watching this and you go follow us there, it really helps support the channel. You can follow or subscribe on YouTube, leave a comment, leave a like, notification bell. You guys know what to do. But if you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, the best way you can help is by following the show and leaving a 5-star review. We would really appreciate that. But any support right now, we appreciate. We hope to see you guys again next week. We are the Double Play Podcast, and we will see you next time.